Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. Glad to see you here. We have a full house, so very, very popular topic. So I will start with a brief introduction about human architects, and then I will let James take this over and share some insights for all of you. So I'm Dr. Miranda Walichowski with Human Architects, and I am also clinical associate faculty at Texas A&M University in Learning Sciences, where I teach graduate level classes in coaching individuals, groups, and teams. A couple of things that you should know about human architects. One, we are partners with TALAS, which is the Texas Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, and we deliver and design their leadership development program. And so cohort 12 just received their applications, they submitted their applications and submitted their verification that they are going to be part of cohort 12. So we're really excited to have them. And what that's all about, it's a year of coaching with group coaching so that they get to build a network, get to know each other, and focus on the internal landscape of the leader. And then in semester 2, we have a lot of guest superintendents come in to address different topics like communication, conflict, building a team, hiring, things like that. And so they get to learn from various superintendents. And then in year 2, they are assigned a superintendent to serve as their mentor. And so they're able to meet with their superintendent mentor throughout that year. So if that sounds of interest, please stay in touch. I will keep you informed in our newsletter. Also, you can stay in touch on LinkedIn with TALAS. So you'll see the next round of cohort whenever that opens up. As well as in human architects. So if you follow us anywhere there, you'll get this information. We're really
excited. Students to be more authentic, impactful writers.
Got it. Okay. And then the second thing, human architects, what we do is we support cabinet level teams, department level teams, and campus leadership teams. And so anymore, that idea of the lone superintendent or CEO that's going to be the hero and take the organization forward is no longer existent. So AI is here and it's even leveling out the playing field even more. And so your people are your strategy, and whether it's a district or an organization, department, whatever, the success of that department or district is going to be really on the success of the team. Like how cohesive are they, how effective are they, et cetera. And so that's what we do. We support superintendents, department teams, campus leadership teams to become more effective with our model of belonging, efficacy, automaticity, mastery, and psychological safety. And then in addition to that, we are human architects, and so I believe in the power of people coming together. And so I always say that what God has given me in wealth, He has given me in people, in relationships, people that I've been able to learn from and collaborate with. And so that's the purpose of Executive Impact Circles, is just to have a topic that's valuable to all of you, to anyone, and bring a room together where we can have discussion, Q&A. There's a lot of information out there. I love books, podcasts, et cetera, but you can't beat being in a room together. And unfortunately, we can't be in person, but being able to have discussions and cross-pollinate ideas and learn from each other. I think that's the most powerful thing that we could have, and also the most influential thing that we can have in our career. So please, stay in touch, and you will be alerted to different topics that we have, and feel free to jump in whenever one is of interest. So that's a little bit about human architects. And now the real reason we're here. James, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Miranda, for the opportunity. I see some familiar faces and names on the screen, so good to see everybody virtually. Thank you for spending part of your day with me and with Miranda and company. I look forward to the conversation. So I'm James. I'm the founder, CEO of JG Consulting. I'm dialed in this afternoon from Georgetown, Texas, where we are officially based. I'm in my home office at the present moment, but we do have a brick and mortar, a physical office in Georgetown. If you're unfamiliar with Georgetown, it is a suburb just north of Austin, north of Leander, Round Rock, kind of the Pflugerville area. We're in the historic neighborhood, which is adjacent to the Georgetown ISD central office and in between the Southwestern University school. So it's in a great location. If you're ever passing through, I invite you to stop by our office. And if you want to meet with me, the best way to reach me to make sure that I am there physically or in town, shoot me a text message. In the chat room, I'll put my personal cell phone number. So that way, if you'd like to visit, catch up at another time outside of today's discussion, you're welcome to send me a message. And then I'll also include my assistant's email. So if you want to schedule a formal time, you're welcome to email her. Her name is Gabby, and she's locally based here in Georgetown, where we are located. The other thing I'll share with you is we do have full-time staff. We have what I consider repurposed recovering superintendents, if you will, that work on behalf of JG Consulting around the United States. We are Texas-based, but we support school systems nationwide. We've done more than 200 executive level placements across 22 states. And so I can see on this call today that a few of my teammates are here. I can't do any of this work without them. So I'm thankful to Lisa, Robert, and others who are on this call for being a part of the team and supporting me as I am quite often on the go. And also too, in the spirit of professional development, professional learning, we have a leadership academy and an executives academy, which I see a couple of members of our existing cohorts. Dr. Bible is joining us. She's a part of our executives academy. Crystal Romero Miller is part of our leadership academy. And I see others who have been a part of our work in the past as well. So we're a full service consultancy representing public education and even municipalities. So we're eager to hear from you today. I'm sure you'll have questions for us if given the opportunity. I'm happy to entertain your questions, but Miranda, really just want to honor your time and thank you again for the opportunity to engage in such a meaningful platform such as this one.
Yes, no, thank you. And we do want this to be interactive, so please unmute yourself whenever you have a question or put it in the chat box and we'll read it. This is for you all to get your questions answered. And I do have some questions prepared just to get the conversation going or so that we don't have a lull. I'm always curious, so we'll always have a lot of questions, but this is mainly for you. So please jump in as needed. Well, James, how did you get into this work? Just a little bit about that background and how that evolved, because it's kind of a unique niche space that you're in.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. I was fortunate to grow up in a household where my parents have always been very pro public education. So I attended public schools in the Austin Independent School District before eventually graduating high school in Hayes Consolidated Independent School District, both in the Central Texas, South Austin area, if you will. My father, Joe Guerra, who is the original JG, I'm at technically JG 3.0. We're all JGs, but my father at one point in his career was an executive with the Princeton Review. So during my time at Texas State, which was then Southwest Texas, I'm dating myself a bit, but I was a student, undergraduate student at Southwest Texas State University, and I was teaching part-time as a sub at San Marcos Consolidated High School, and then also interning for the Princeton Review, which is the organization my father was an executive supporting their efforts. So long story short, I was recruited to the Dallas area, which is where I started my career. I shared my cell phone number, so you'll notice it's a 214 number. But my career afforded me quite a bit of networking opportunities. As a single guy, I was pretty nimble and willing to be mobile to the extent the companies that I represented wanted me to work in other parts of the US. I relocated to the West Coast and then again, eventually to the East Coast and then back to Texas in 2014. But to round out my answer, in the executive search field, I worked with Dr. Michael Hinojosa, who is a part of my team now, for a different organization, which is no longer in operation. When that company fell apart, just to put it in simple terms, I made the decision on a whim without having really any prospects to start JG Consulting. So I'm proud of the fact that we just celebrated our 11th anniversary last week. June 3rd. So I mentioned earlier, as a fact, we've done more than 200 executive searches across 22 states. We're getting ready to start our 66th superintendent search here in the near future. But again, all credit given where credit is due. I have an amazing team. We have a team of full-time staff and approximately 40 educators, practitioners like everybody here on this call, for the most part, who support us. But that's kind of the brief history. There's more to it, but I want to honor our time today, so I'll just pause there.
Okay, no, wonderful. Thank you for that background. And so for those that are not aware, like how does a superintendent search or an executive search work? Like who reaches out first, and just walk us a little bit through that process for those that may not have that insight.
Sure. Like any vendor, any organization, we are first contracted or contacted by the school system, whether it's a public school system, a charter management organization, or even a parochial or private institution. And so it's typically in the form of a request for proposal, request for qualifications, and we respond like any vendor to a solicitation. So we submit our formal proposal and our bid. And then at that time, the review committee, which is typically the school board representing the organization, and sometimes it's internal stakeholders like the human resources department, procurement department, others assigned to vetting search firms. But our goal is, just like for anyone who's interested in pursuing a career opportunity, our goal and objective is to get on the dance floor, to have and receive an invitation to interview. And so normally a school district, if they go through a formal process such as the one I'm describing, they'll invite 3 to 4 executive search firms to interview publicly with the school board. They'll ask us a series of questions and we'll respond accordingly. And then at that same meeting, if they're following kind of the standard practice, they'll take action and hire a search firm. So if we're speaking Texas specific, there's quite a few different groups. You have your state association, which is TASB, the Texas Association of School Boards. You have other well-known groups in the state that are specific to Texas. And nowadays, we are seeing more law firms associated with the school search, school executive placement process. And then in other states, it's very consistent. It varies. California has quite a few groups. Florida has different groups. Nationwide, we are one of 5 national search firms. We are the only national firm that's based in Texas. Our counterparts are for whatever reason, they're kind of insulated in the Midwest. I don't know why that's the case, but we're proud of the fact that we're the only national firm based in Texas. But that's kind of how we start. Once the board hires us, then we are working at the will of the school board. So our representation is of course, the district, but our directives come from the school board. So we work directly with the school board members.
Okay. And so when your firm is chosen out of the others, what do you think it is that triggers and distinguishes you from the others?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And I think in this business, and I would argue in all walks of life when it comes to partnerships, it's all relational. Our track record speaks for itself. So if we're invited to interview, we're certainly qualified to be in the room for consideration. We have the credentials, we have the pedigree. The practitioners on my team have a lot of firepower, and they've done tremendous work over their storied careers. But I think other factors or attributes that set us apart, we're very technology centric. We use a lot of technology to incorporate an inclusive process, a transparent process, not only for the board members, but for the stakeholders internally and externally. Some of those attributes include an on-demand interview experience. So we subscribe to a platform called SparkHire. So if you're unfamiliar with SparkHire, or if you are familiar with it, you know that as a candidate, when you submit an application through our platform, you will be invited to complete a short video vignette answering a series of questions. One question might be, what drew you to the position of superintendent with the Capel Independent School District? How do those aspirations align with your career goals? So when we receive these videos and when we present all of the artifacts to our school board, not only do they each get, each board member gets and receives an iPad, not to keep, but on loan as we're deliberating and vetting candidates together. All of your artifacts are uploaded, your letter of interest, your resume, your academic credentials, background reports, etc. But to complement and supplement the presentation of your artifacts, we also show your video. So the candidates get to demonstrate who they are, what they offer in terms of their experiences, their skill set. You want to treat it like a standard interview, dress accordingly, check your lighting, your sound, all of the things that we're accustomed to now post the COVID. And then the board members really get to know who you are as an individual. So that sets us apart. We were the first initially to engage in a platform or a setting that allows for candidates to showcase their skills and their experiences. More groups are embracing this form of technology. So now we've taken it a step further. We've developed a proprietary software that looks across all 50 states and the accountability data as it correlates to your academic performance as a school system. And so these scorecards are created automatically upon receipt of an application from a candidate. So it really helps our school board members understand how, as an education leader, you have improved the academic performance in your current school system or even your past school systems. We put a timeline constraint on it. So it's the most recent 3 years. So whether you are in your current role for, let's just say 2 years, but you were in another district prior, we take a look at the track record, the academic track record, according to the different data sets that we use, such as third grade reading and math and across all different domains. So that's unique to us. We own that software. School boards really like it because it's simplified rather than having to look at a very robust accountability report, which is very hard to unpack in such a limited time constraint. Because when we present candidates in closed session, for example, we may have 50 applicants for a job, and we're not withholding information. And so in order for us to crystallize the process, we need to be able to give them a truncated scorecard that is legible and makes sense to them. So there's quite a bit that makes us unique. And then, we cast a wide net. So we're working with all of the groups and associations. You mentioned TALAS. Some of the original founders of TALAS are a part of our team. We placed the executive director with the ALAS Association, the national umbrella. We have a strong and broad footprint. So we leverage our networks quite a bit.
Okay, no, fantastic. I'm going to ask you one question and then I'm going to follow up with some on the chat box. So I noticed that you do place like athletic directors. And so could you talk a little bit about, it's not just superintendent, but it looks like the types of levels. What about principals, et cetera? So will you let us know that first, and then I'll ask you the questions in the chat.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. So we are a full service executive recruitment firm, and that includes recruiting principals, executive directors, anything with a C-suite level title is within our purview. So we currently have more than, I think, a dozen active executive searches ranging from comptroller to director of finance, accounts payable, soon another superintendent search, but athletic directors, general counsel, really anything. City managers, I mentioned that we work with city municipalities, nonprofits in education. Yuli Navarrete with ALAS, he was one of our recent nonprofit recruits. So it just varies, but all in the spirit of education for the most part. The municipalities are a bit, they're more of a one-off support that we can offer, but it's not generally our core practice.
Okay, great. And Alma has a question on those video vignettes. Like if you were to coach someone on how to do a phenomenal one based on the best ones you've seen, what elements would you encourage them to include?
Yeah, so I think to the extent you're comfortable in a video interview, I recognize and we are sensitive to the fact that it can come across very impersonal. You are responding to questions really without anyone on the other end of the experience. So you will use your own device. So I think from a technical approach, I would recommend using either Safari or Google Chrome as the platform, the search engine. Perhaps consider using a laptop or even a desktop. The quality isn't as great if you attempt to use an iPad or your cell phone. I mean, it's doable, but I would suggest using a laptop or desktop. And you can also take your time. We've seen where candidates may stop and start or pause their videos and do it over a period of 2 days or 3 days. And we can always tell when that occurs because we would hope that you would take care of your hygiene and you might have a wardrobe change. But you can certainly do that. You have the autonomy to take your time. So I think that's important. So, the questions are timed. They vary from 2 minutes to 3 minutes in response, but they're very high level. They're not granular. They're not very specific. They're not going to ask you very challenging questions. It's an opportunity for the board to get to know you. So I would encourage you to be relaxed, be confident, take your time, answer, the brief set of questions, but treat it like you would a standard interview. And, to the extent you can avoid reading off of a script and just coming across more natural, I would certainly encourage you to just be as natural as possible. I do recognize that having something to reference or maybe some shorthand notes can be helpful, but it's interesting that school board members will ask me, and I don't know because I'm not on the other end answering the questions, but they'll say, is the candidate reading from a script? And I say, well, it appears so, but I can't confirm nor deny if that's accurate just based off of the answer. So it doesn't hurt or harm your opportunity if you do read from a script, but I'd be remiss to say if it's probably better if the more natural you are and the more comfortable you are, I think that'll have its appeal.
Right. No, that makes sense. And probably just having bulleted items that you could speak from would probably be best so that your eyes aren't tracking on the script as well. Energy, I think, is important in those video vignettes because that comes across. Like if there's passion, if you're smiling, if there's some energy, I think that's going to distinguish you versus somebody who is just kind of just there, more robotic. And so that may be something to consider as well. Like how do you convey that in the video? So Dr. Ronnie Gonzalez had a question about, is it also on the operations side? You answered that. It's comptrollers, CFOs, it's athletic directors, it's everyone that you can help match and serve. And so here, Crystal Romero has, what has your experience found to be the #1 predictor for a successful search when the first interview happens? And then #2, what can make or break the second round of interview?
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic question. So I'll answer the first part of that question. Thank you, Crystal. So again, as I stated early on at the beginning of this meeting, it's a relational business. Superintendents are hired by boards who feel that they have a good connection with. Boards ultimately hire who they like and they fire who they don't like. There's no other way of putting it. So I'll just be direct and just candid with you. So you're qualified. If you get an opportunity to interview in person, do not second guess yourself. You're there for a reason. You check the boxes on the leadership profile. You meet the criteria according to the characteristics, the traits, and the qualities of the job description. So if you are one of the select few to be invited for an interview, answer their questions, of course, during the interview. Where candidates fall short is when they are not necessarily addressing the questions. Try to be comfortable, present in your breathing, whatever you can do to relax yourself, relax your nerves. I understand it's natural to be nervous, but sometimes nervous energy can overwhelm any person in an intense interview. We understand that you're going to put a lot of effort, a lot of work, especially if you apply with us to get to that point of an interview. But be yourself and do your best not to second guess why you're there. We don't believe in courtesy interviews, so you will not be invited if it's not a legitimate, authentic opportunity for you. As an aspiring superintendent or any role, whether you're applying to be a principal, an executive director, chief of operations, athletic director, we approach the work in the same manner as we would any executive level. The second part, what can make or break the second round interview? Well, the second round interview generally consists of the top 2 to 3 finalists. And if afforded the opportunity, we encourage our school district partners, and this is specific to the superintendent opportunity. In most instances, the school board will offer the candidate and his or her significant other, their spouse, the partner, to share a meal with the board in private before the formal interview begins. So my firm, my team, we're there in person. We'll help kind of coordinate, facilitate everything, but we do not participate in the actual interviews in any setting, whether it's a principal search, COO search, CFO, doesn't matter. We're there in the bullpen. We're kind of in the cheap seats. We're there to support and to help, but you'll engage in a formal meal with the school board. And this is, again, specific to the superintendent opportunity. Once the dinner, the lunch, the breakfast concludes, your significant other, your spouse, your partner will hang out with me or a member of my team. We'll visit. We'll even offer you the opportunity, your spouse, to take a tour of the community, see schools, while the candidate, the superintendent applicant, is meeting with the school board. So to answer the question even more directly, it's got to be a good fit on both sides. So I think there needs to be some reciprocal discussions with you and your significant others if it is a superintendent opportunity to determine, is this a good fit for me, not only professionally, but personally for my family. And, I would just be mindful it's still an interview. You don't want to be too casual. We have seen superintendents not get hired because of behaviors that have been exhibited during that meal sharing experience from the significant other, the spouse's participation. So be mindful of that. I understand that's a bit of a sensitive topic, so I can't tell you how to coach or to coach up or coach down your significant other, but we have seen where things have fallen apart that way. But things that I would suggest, just as a inside baseball knowledge, you're within your right to prepare like a 90-day entry plan. I've seen quite a few artifacts that have been left behind, professionally bound by a service like FedEx or another printing shop, but incorporating images from the school district, pictures of the students, yourself. This is a very competitive opportunity for any role that you apply. So setting yourself apart from your peers for the position you're applying for, the more effort that you demonstrate you've put into it, it goes a long way with school boards or the hiring committee if it's for a different position. So yes, you'll incur some costs and some expense doing that. But things that you can uniquely separate, how you can uniquely separate yourself from the pack. Those are all things you're well within your right to do.
Okay.
So I'll pause there because there's a lot more tips and tricks I can offer. But those are some of the things immediately that come to mind.
That makes sense. Well, that's a perfect segue to Aaron Hull's question. He's on the Human Architects team. He's asking about AI. So with AI, everybody now has a B-, B+ ability to write an email or answer interview questions because of AI. And so how do you see the role of AI playing in this? Like, what warnings do you have? How's this changing the interview process, resume building, all of those things?
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, we're a huge fan of AI. Our team, my firm, uses Chat GPT religiously around the clock. And it's a good tool and a resource to create like the bones of whatever it is that you are developing, whether it's a letter of interest, it's a resume. Obviously, you have to put your personal, authentic touch on whatever that framework is that you're developing using artificial intelligence. Everything that we do as an example, since we are active users of AI and Chat GPT in particular, I screen and vet everything to ensure that it is really reflective of our words and it is unique to like the norms and the values of us. We want to make sure that it is representative of who we are as an organization. And I think the same could be said universally for the group here this afternoon. Having that authentic, genuine, like personal touch is critical. I think folks are smart enough to determine or to recognize that, hey, this doesn't really seem like the person that we just heard from in the on-demand interview. It doesn't quite come across as them. And I still think that there is the opportunity to incorporate your own bespoke, customized voice. But I think the bones are generally good. But our school board partners and our hiring committees, they're smart. And I would argue also that many of our clients, they're using AI to a certain degree because they see the efficiency, the ability to shorten bandwidth constraints, and just the economies of scale. And it's not going anywhere. I mean, it's certainly going to evolve, and it's an organic, living, breathing thing. So, I mean, we're here for it. So if you want us to take a look at any of your artifacts, we have internal folks who can take a look at some of the items and the things that you're putting together. I'll just have to pair you with the right person. But yeah, certainly I think AI is a beneficial tool. So I appreciate that question there.
Okay, great. Here we have a question from Josue Romero. How do you conduct searches where there was a fallout or contention between the board and the last superintendent? And then what would you be forthcoming to the candidate if you feel they would struggle if selected? So if you knew, they're walking into some interesting territory.
Yeah, that's an interesting question and one that I can appreciate. So we have worked with a number of school boards in different capacities, not just locally, but elsewhere across the country, where a school board might have been divided for whatever their reasons at the time were, whether they're political differences in budgeting, finance, school closures, the list goes on. So unfortunately, in a scenario or a setting where there's division or a fractured school board, I find myself, so I take ownership as the owner of the firm, building unison from the beginning with the school boards if there is a division amongst those school board members. So whether that includes a retreat, a workshop, some sort of event or a meeting, private meeting, to where I can understand where there's tension or tensions, where there are issues and how we must overcome and overcome some of these barriers to reach our goals, our objectives of hiring a superintendent. Because let's be frank, at the end of the day, we all want to work with good school boards. As an incoming superintendent, I would never recommend to anyone to walk into a scenario or an environment where there is clear division or a clear fracture on the board. However, if we are given the opportunity and we're tasked with doing so, it is our job, my job, to build unison and to get all of the board members singing from the same sheet of music. And we've had scenarios where it has been challenging. I won't deny that we've worked with boards who have been divided right down the middle for various reasons, but fortunately, at the end of the process, we were able to galvanize the board around a shared mission and a vision and get them on the same page. And so the reason I like that question is because your first question to any search firm, whether it's me, another group, a law firm, whoever's managing the process, should never be the salary or this or that. Your first question as a candidate, if you're applying to be superintendent, should always be, tell me about the school board. What is the school board like? Are they in unison? And I'm the type that will shoot you straight. Like, I'm going to be as transparent, as candid with you, probably more so than you were expecting. And I will say this board has certain challenges. There's surface level challenges, and there's more like historically rooted challenges. And I'll share with you, like, here are the obstacles you must overcome in order to be successful. So that way you're not blindsided. But understanding the tone and the tenor of the board is important. You can watch board briefings, whether they're archived videos of board meetings, live meetings. I would encourage all of you who are interested in the superintendency to do that. It's the best way to kind of gauge the temperament of the board. I do that before we interview. I try to understand the political landscape, the underpinnings, if you will. So those are some of the things that I would encourage you to do. And I think walking into a scenario, don't anticipate that you're immediately going to struggle. If there's a division on the board, that just means they need some governance support. They might need a team of 8 training if it's a 7-member board. But we offer that kind of support. Like, we won't leave you hanging if you're named the permanent superintendent. We have ongoing support, and definitely it's a part of our assurance that you'll be successful. So that's something that we offer and we guarantee with all of our partners.
Yeah, that's amazing that you do that work. Do your competitors also do that? That sounds like it would be a unique approach.
I've heard that some do. To the degree that they do, I can't really speak to. I apologize, but I'll give you a recent example. This week on Tuesday, Dr. Kent Scribner, former superintendent at Fort Worth ISD, was working with the Board of Education and the new superintendent in Stafford County, Virginia. And the objectives of that meeting were to establish benchmarks for the superintendent's new evaluation, and to address some of the challenges that the new superintendent and the board were having in the early stages. And so it was an all-day workshop. Dr. Scribner led that on behalf of my firm with the board and with the new superintendent. So yes, that's something that we do. The other groups, I couldn't really speak to their efficacy or how intense their support mechanisms are, but our success is your success. We want to see longevity. We want you to thrive. We want everyone to be successful, our school board partners to feel supported. And, as a business owner, I have skin in the game. So, I'd like to have, the track record exceed the national average of placements. And I'm proud that we have over the course of our tenure as a firm.
Yeah. Okay. No, fantastic. I mean, that really speaks to me as the work that I do with teams is it's so critical to have that unified voice. And so that's amazing that you take the time to do that when it's not there. I think that's fantastic. Here we have a question from Dr. Ashley Bible, and she's asking about, and this was something I was also curious about, like, do you influence, do you rank, do you pre-evaluate, do you offer any commentary? Do you invite people to apply for a certain position if you think there's a fit? Like, what does your role look like?
Yeah. So internally, I reference my team quite a bit. So the practitioners, the retired, recovering, repurposed superintendents like Dr. Hinojosa, Dr. Scribner, Dr. Linares, all of the above. If they're associated with a superintendent search, let's just use the hypothetical number I gave earlier. So if there's 50 applicants, as a team, each person who is working on behalf of a district is responsible individually to review your videos, review your letters of interest, your application materials, such as your resume, anything else supplemental that you provide, and of course, watch the videos, as I mentioned. Once each person, myself included, concludes the review, the vetting of the materials, we use a nominal grouping technique. to identify who the candidates are that most closely align to the leadership profile. So the leadership profile for us is synonymous with the job description. They're one and the same. So all of the attributes, the characteristics you see in the bullet points of a profile, that is our North Star. That's our rubric. In addition, like less objective, somewhat more subjective is once we get to know you as a candidate from our interactions, but also understanding what the hopes and expectations are of the board members, I try to think of the fit from the community, the student body, all of the stakeholders, macro and micro. So fit is really important. So I'll come back to the relational piece. But as far as the qualifications, if your candidate profile aligns with the leadership profile of the job, then you're likely going to fall into our recommended tier. But we are not operating with a stable of candidates. We're not recycling candidates from one district to the other. When we present candidates, our client, the school district, the school board, in any scenario, for any position, has access to everything. So we just concluded this process in Hartford County Public Schools in Connecticut. We had 40 applicants. I was there personally presenting the candidates, and the Board of Education had access to all 40. So we do identify who we feel most closely aligned to that North Star, the profile. But the board can agree or disagree with us and determine who they want to bring in for an interview. And sometimes they do. They say, okay, we're in alignment with your recommendations from the JG consulting team. Other times they might say, hey, we're interested in hearing more from this person. Let's include them in the process. And let me see. Okay. I'm reading back, make sure I'm capturing all of the questions. And yes, we do recruit. So where we shine, we're not relying on advertisements, our website advertisements, and we cast a wide net. So we are recruiting talent who are happy and content in their current roles. So the more that I know about each of you and like your current roles, how well you have performed in your current roles, like I'll just pick up the phone and call you. I call it the poaching. So we poach and recruit talented individuals away from their current roles. And that's really where we shine. And that's the charge and the directive I give to all of my team members, is to not rely on the advertisement, but to call the people who you know, but who fit the profile and the expectations of the different stakeholders.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so that, therefore, building the networks and being visible at conferences and things like that matters. And building all of that. So Alma has a question about which boards are more likely to hire somebody that has 0 to 3 years of experience as a superintendent or aspiring superintendent. Who's open to that? What do you think?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. Since, this is our 11th year of engaging in this process, I would say more than 50% of our superintendent placements have been aspiring superintendents, first time neophyte superintendents. And I would also add that we are almost an even split of women to men in terms of the ratio of who's hired. So I'm really proud that the diversity of our placements and the gender balance has at least with us, has become more even. And I would attribute the uprising of aspiring superintendent hires to a couple of things. Post-pandemic, we've seen more sitting superintendents either retire or resign, prematurely of their contract expiration dates. And I don't know if that's just fatigue or if it's just the political challenges that we're all kind of facing right now. I can't say that I can pinpoint any one thing, but that gives rise to superintendents who aren't currently experienced in the role, aspiring superintendents. And so, we also have our leadership academy, so it's specifically designed for aspiring superintendents. So we have our finger on the pulse of rising talent, which gives us an advantage of of supporting school boards. And I think school boards are generally open-minded. We ask a question when we meet with them and consult with them before we begin a process. Are you open-minded to an aspiring superintendent? If so, tell us, like, what is your ideal role if they are aspiring? Is this a deputy superintendent, an assistant superintendent? Like, help us understand the qualities and the traits you're looking for. But I would say, you know, if you feel you qualify based off of the profile, to use a baseball analogy, you can't get a hit unless you swing the bat. You know, you got to put yourself in the batter's box. So I would get in the batter's box, throw your name in the ring and then the hat, and, you know, we'll represent you accordingly for any of the roles that you're seeking, that we're supporting.
Okay, great. And here's another question. I'm actually surprised about your statistic about your gender distribution and those that you support, and then also that they're so open to new and aspiring. So that's amazing. What is the role of the consulting firm during the 21-day waiting period? What are reasons that loan finalists may not be offered a contract after the 21 days?
Yeah, that's a great question. So during the 21-day period, this is specific to Texas, if for those of you that are not from Texas on this call, but we have a state statute, and the 21-day period is the negotiation timeframe. So what occurs first is a superintendent is named loan finalist to serve on behalf of that school system. As soon as the board takes action and makes a motion to name the loan finalist, that moment, the 21-day period, the clock starts ticking. So if for us in this group, if we were to be a school board, we would take action on somebody, the clock starts ticking today. So day 21 and counting forward. This is day 1. You look at the calendar. So the school board has in-house counsel or third-party counsel, legal representation who will represent the board during the negotiation period. The 21-day period is the negotiation period when the candidate, the loan finalist, and his or her legal representation. And I say his or her because I would recommend, if you don't have somebody that represents you legally for your contract as a loan finalist, a superintendent, you consider engaging with a third-party representation. And if you need a reference or recommendation, I can provide you with somebody who we recommend. We don't play a role in the contract negotiation. However, there have been limited instances where legal representation for the school district and the candidate didn't necessarily see eye to eye during that 21-day period. And school board members have asked me to intervene and to be mom and dad and to step in to get the ball across the finish line. And it's usually unbeknownst to the candidate. In every instance that I'm referring to, it was the candidate's attorney just being too aggressive on certain asks within the contract. And the candidate just didn't know. So to their defense, they were unaware. But once I stepped in and I was able to uncover what was going on, I was able to salvage those opportunities. And that's really important. So just stay in touch with your counsel. They represent you. So they work at the will of your interests, not the other way around. So I just, I can't emphasize that enough. Attorneys can make money on the back end if they get you a higher salary or get you more incentives or benefits towards your TRS, your retirement, your annuities, your 403B. So be mindful that, if they're aggressive, they're doing that because it pads their wallets.
Okay, good. That's some great insight for individuals. What do you recommend for someone aspiring to become a superintendent or just step into the next leadership role at whatever it may be, cabinet level, in terms of like their portfolio? What should they be mindful of in terms of milestones, collecting evidence on impact? What do you think they should be doing to be prepared?
Yeah, no, I think that's a terrific question. So I think the more well-rounded experiences that you can convey and articulate in your resume, your artifacts, or your vita, if you will, and give you specific examples. If most of your experiences have been in the academic department areas of a school system, or conversely, if we had the question about operations, if most of your career has been spent in maintenance or operations, I would encourage you to ask your school district, your employer, your supervisors, if you can gain experiences in other areas of the organization. So if it's budgeting, if it's maintenance operation, if it's finance, if it's the health services, as an incoming neophyte, first-time superintendent, being able to demonstrate on your resume that you've had a varied, multifaceted set of experiences will grant the board more peace of mind, knowing that you're a jack of all trades. You know, you have the utility experiences, and that you're not necessarily going to have to learn on the job day one. And I'll give you a recent example. We had a candidate apply for a job in New Mexico. She was based in Texas, and most of her experiences were academic, curricular focused. And she was one of the finalists, but where she fell short in the end, her experiences didn't afford her an opportunity to speak to maintenance and operations, budgeting, bond propositions, or bond referendum experiences. Like in Texas, as another specific example, we have many fast growth areas. So if your community is fast growth and you're planning to pass a set of bond propositions, I would highly recommend and encourage all of you to consider gaining as much experience in bond planning, or at least being a part of a committee, so that way you can speak to your experiences. Because if you're applying to a district where they're going to have to open a second high school, the nuances behind opening another campus is a large task, and it can be quite daunting for an incoming superintendent if they never had that experience. Other areas where, if you're closing schools, in many instances in urban settings, we're facing a time right now where we're seeing numerous closures nationwide, East Coast to West Coast, especially in large urban settings. How have you closed or consolidated schools? So there's so much more than just your day-to-day, your current roles. So any way you can weave in some of those other experiences in your resume, and then even speak to it in the videos. So I mentioned the on-demand videos. However, you can kind of weave in some of those experiences will help. And then lastly, before I shut up and we can go on to the next question, the more you get to know us and the team members that are associated with my firm, I would encourage you to network with as many of them as possible in your respective states. And if you see somebody on our faculty page that is in your area, or somebody you'd like to connect with, you can shoot me a text message and I'll connect you with them by text and introduce you. And I'm one person of roughly 50 people. And I think sometimes folks make the mistake of only networking with me. But I, at a minimum, will always assign 2 to 3 former superintendents, educators to a search to help us. So it's really good to get to know them. And of course, I'll respond to you and answer you, but I would encourage you to get to know the other folks as well.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fantastic. No, those are great insights on what individuals can be doing. Are there any other questions as we wrap up? Is there a pressing question that you have? And while people think about that and unmute or put it in the chat box, what have you seen allows either somebody stepping into an executive role, or whether that be the superintendent role or another, that has allowed them to be successful on day one? Like, what are some of the practices, traits that individual has that have allowed them to just solidify a strong, auspicious start?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So being just a well-rounded listener, be a good listener, understand, the history, and listen to really comprehend and understand the institutional history of the organization. There's likely going to be a ton of institutional knowledge already engendered by your peers in whatever organization you choose to join. And just listen and learn as much as you can, engage with the various stakeholders internally, externally, Students are a good source of information, and they're usually unfiltered, especially the older kids and even the younger ones. But you can gain a lot from just learning, listening, and immersing yourself in the culture of the organization. And I think the culture will speak a lot to whether you've made the right decision. You know, I think the success of any organization can be attributed to the strength of the culture, and evaluating the cultural norms and identifying where there's some weaknesses. But I would temper and hold back on addressing, you know, inefficiencies or weaknesses in the organization that you might have identified. I might even hold off for, you know, 2 to 3 months before you bring any of that information to light, because you want to be sensitive, right? You want to kind of approach things with an open mind, but you're there, you were hired to bring your talent there for a reason. And I'm sure you will quickly identify what works and what doesn't, but I would just ease into it. Some folks come in really hard and aggressive, and in those instances don't always benefit the person who is joining the organization. So you want to kind of take your time and ease into it.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic advice. Okay, and then wonderful. So yeah, definitely encourage everyone to, when you get off this call, to connect with James and others from his team on LinkedIn, at least as an initial start. Feel free to connect with each other as well in the call, build those networks as well. Well, James, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you feel would benefit everybody in the room?
No, nothing that I can think of offhand. Just
Okay.
want to thank you again, Miranda, and everyone for joining today. I hope everybody has a pleasant, safe summer. Try to take some time off. I think one thing we don't talk about enough is our own well-being, our own health. I have to remind myself and my team, you got to take time to decompress, recalibrate. It's another school year. We'll be here before we know it. So I hope you find time to enjoy for yourself and with your families, your friends. And my firm is here to help you. So you have our contact info, and don't be a stranger. Feel free to drop us a line, and we look forward to receiving your applications down the road.
Okay, no, that's wonderful, James. And I hope you'll say yes to doing this again for us in the future. I think this was just so value adding for everybody in the room. And so just really excited for them as well. So I will send out some notes to everyone. We don't allow any external recording, just in case, to protect the confidentiality of the people who are here and questions they may ask, and the speaker as well. But we will, you know, using AI, hit all the highlights and main points and send those to you. And if you need anything else, just let us know. But that's the reason we do it that way. And many thanks in the chat box as well. So have a wonderful afternoon. And James, do you mind staying back just a second?
No, not at all. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, great.
Have a good
Thank you.
afternoon.
All right, thank you.